Good evening, and welcome to another episode of The Fire Caves, a Star Trek Deep Space Nine podcast. I'm one of your hosts, Perry.
I'm your host, David. Tonight we're talking about Season 7, Episode 12, The Emperor's New Cloak. Before we continue, you can find us on Facebook, Spotify, Apple Podcasts, and YouTube as The Fire Caves, a Star Trek Deep Space Nine podcast.
That is correct. As I say every single week, you should find us and follow us because we're great, we're awesome, we're a good time, and we're probably the only people out right now covering Star Trek Deep Space Nine, at least as far as I can check. Now, before we get into everything else, I do like to give these little updates on kind of the goings on behind the scenes when it comes to episode availability. And I know that we have been struggling as of late with that. I'm not going to apologize because it's not my fault. I've been looking through this over and over again, and it's really not anything that I've done. The episodes are there; they're just for some reason not syncing up to the Apple playlist, to Spotify, so forth and so on. So I'm trying to work with the different hosting platforms to get everything released. But think of this as a great opportunity for you to go and get yourself caught up with any episodes that you haven't had the opportunity to listen to, or maybe didn't listen to all the way through. I know there's a couple you've probably skipped, some of our, longer ones, maybe a few of those after darks you thought you could just, do without. But go ahead, take a listen, give us your feedback on those. And as soon as everything is up and running on the others, I will, of course, let you know. Most likely, what's going to happen there is they're all going to suddenly become available. So you're going to have like a month worth of episodes that you can listen to. So be excited for that when it comes. I am hoping to get all of this done before it gets too much later into the year. I'd like to have it done within like the next week or so. Hopefully, have a resolution on those released, so we can be caught up. But yeah, just bear with us. I promise we'll get them. In the meantime, you can go and listen to the old things. They're available on every platform still, or you can go to YouTube and watch all of our episodes. Everything is there. Everything is up to date there, so you're good to go on that end. All right.
Gotcha.
So, as always, as David said, we are here to talk about the Emperor's New Cloak. I'm just going to go ahead and say, not a fan of this episode, but we'll get into all that, of course. But before we do, I'd like to do our little weekly check in. So, David, how has your week been?
Week's been good. Tomorrow is my birthday, 35.
Oh, Lord.
Yeah, it's here. So it was fun today. Went to a little like Dave and Buster's style place for my brother and his wife and my nieces. We went there. So while it was my birthday, we were primarily letting the girls have some fun running around. And the highlight of the day was there's one of those big old crane games where the crane will pick up whatever prize.
Hmm.
There were a bunch of balls and like stuffed animals in this big one. And my niece, the 7-year-old, she decided to go for one in the back that had a brown look to it. And I went to the side of the machine to help her get it in the right position, and she dropped it perfectly. She got it. It came out, and it turned out it was worth 5,000 tickets at the prize counter, and so our measly 2,000 tickets suddenly jumped up to 7,000, and so we were able to walk away with a few fun little gifts by the end of the day. So it was a fun little excursion out this
Okay.
afternoon. Um, Went and saw the new Mission Impossible, the eighth one. I know you haven't yet
No
seen the Perry's.
spoilers. I
No
was going to say,
spoilers.
no spoilers.
Yeah, all I'll say is that if you love the Mission Impossible movies, go see it. Tom Cruise is great. It's not the best one of the series. There are others that are better, but if you are a Mission Impossible aficionado, go see it if you can. Um, and the book I read this week, I read a fun little book called Werewolf Cop. It's a book from Andrew Clavin, again, one of those Daily Wire hosts. I read his book True Crime very like before that. Werewolf Cop has a fun premise. It's the main character is he's a cop. He's more like an FBI style guy, but
Mhm.
um, the bad guy in the story gets more mystical. Turns out he gets bit by a werewolf, he gets cursed with the werewolf curse, and suddenly he has to negotiate trying to solve the murder mystery while himself being guilty of having killed someone as a werewolf when he first turns. So that was a fun little novel I just finished this past week. Um, I'm going to start a book on Rush, Benjamin Rush, who was one of the founding fathers. He's kind of one of those lower, not as well known people. He was a physician and like a doctor. And, back then they didn't have a lot of accurate knowledge about medicine, but he was
Oh
one.
well, yeah.
He,
Rampant torture of people for medical knowledge hadn't quite taken off yet. So
yeah, yeah, we can go there. But they did have, of course, that lovely idea of let's bleed everybody. That the stuff in your body that helps you recover. Let's get all that out of your body, and we can make it worse for you. Anyway, I'll be starting that one. That one's gonna take me a few weeks, and then I don't know. Maybe by that point, you and I will be at a point where we can maybe have book 9 of the Expanse. And
I am I am glad you brought that up because
yeah,
I have been spending my time reading the book. I just started chapter 19, so I'm not quite halfway, but real close. I was just actually taking a look here. Not quite, but
nice,
real close here to the
right?
halfway point of the book. I am enjoying it, but I'm still gonna say book 6, I think it was still my favorite so far. Yes, this is giving me a lot of proto-molecule stuff, and I enjoy those parts. But there's just so much other, like with a couple of new characters that are introduced, um, that I don't care for, I will say. So
Yeah,
I'm waiting for that to kind of, I guess, make a little bit more sense to me. So maybe as it goes through here, I'll feel a little bit better about that. But so far, hasn't happened yet. But again, still enjoying the book overall. So yeah,
good,
we will get there. I have also been on this kick. I don't know how to describe it. Like I've wanted to, learn some new things, challenge myself a bit, and I signed up for these courses, which the books just came recently, and actually my first day of official, coursework online and everything was today.
mm,
And it is these quick start guides to learn how to do certain things, like learn how to manipulate SQL, learn the
HTML,
HTML stuff,
nice,
and of course learning Python as well. So
okay,
I'm gonna see how much of this I can make myself assimilate, I guess, over the next 2 months. In addition to that, something we'd also talked about in the previous episode, I started today, June 1st, the weightlifting stuff that I was talking about, the new
mm,
training and kind of
right,
a bit more of a intensive program, even for myself. It's 2 a day workouts with your more intense workout in the morning, your calisthenics, walk, run, cardio based stuff in the evening. That's 5 days a week. Your sixth day is just strictly a light stretch, nothing hardcore, and then you have one day of total complete rest. So that's the plan for 60 days to see just what I can do, how I can really kind of fix my health to a certain degree, because I feel like even with other things that I've done in the past, I maybe haven't been quite so health focused. I was
right,
focused on, like, yeah, losing weight being a part of it, but the majority of what I was doing before was definitely about getting stronger. This is more about endurance, flexibility, again, overall health. Monitoring what I'm eating to a more precise degree, controlling all of those things, and just kind of seeing how that all pans out for me over the next 60 days. So, yeah, I'll keep you updated if you want. If anybody is ever interested in any of the programs that I come up with and how I do stuff, I have no problem with sharing any of that information. If you want to just reach out and ask me, I will, of course, take you through what I know. But please bear in mind, I am in no way a health professional, a medical professional, any of that, a dietitian, nutritionist, none of that. This is just stuff that I know for me works. Stuff that I've done in my past that I've now adapted to older me. and I'm working from it from that particular perspective. There are some new workouts, things I have never done before that I've introduced into this program, but again, I'm using myself as my,
Guinea pig.
tester, guinea pig, yeah, whatever you want to call it. So if you do decide to take it in, my advice, please don't try to come for me later on saying how it didn't work or it affected you differently or anything like that. I am in no way certified or whatever to give you like hardcore official advice. This is just stuff that I know for me, from my perspective, works. Totally up to you what you do with your body, with your time. That's on you. All right. So there. Said my piece. After that large, disclaimer, yeah, give me a shot. Who knows? Maybe I can help you out. So but we're not here to talk about any of that. We are here to talk about Star Trek Deep Space Nine and the Emperor's New Cloak. Would you like me to give the recap or would you do it?
I can do it if you don't care for the episode. I just watched it.
Yeah, I mean, I watched it too because I hadn't seen this one in a while. So it doesn't matter.
Yeah, go for it.
All right. Well, so this episode starts out with Quark in Quarks, and he's there with Odo, and they are watching Esri and Bashir from afar, clearly enjoying one another's company. This is much to Quark's dismay because he has a crush on Esri. We then see him later on offering a prayer to a golden Ferengi statue, where he's asking for not only good fortune but also for a little assistance in the Esri department. Someone comes knocking on his door. He opens the door, and there's Esri, dressed in all black, hair styled differently, of course, and she's much more aggressive than the Esri that we know. And whether you love her or not, that's on you. Um, so Esri comes in. She basically, yeah, she doesn't basically. She throws him up against the wall, knife to his throat, and then she plays a message for him from the Grand Nagus. Zek tells him that basically he is on the other side. He's in the mirror universe, and where he's now being held captive. And the Regent wants a cloaking device in exchange for Zek's life and release. So now um, Quark is tasked with Esri to figure out a way to get a cloaking device. They rope not Nog, I'm sorry, Rom in on this whole thing. She basically is like, you have 3 days to get a cloaking device. If you don't get one, Zek is dead. They sneak aboard Martok's ship, who happens to be docked at Deep Space Nine. They remove the cloaking device from his ship, and they just narrowly escape detection by Martok and Cisco, who happen to be walking through the corridor. Just escape detection with the stupidest ruse I've ever seen. Um, and then make it to the cargo bay where they're trying to beam to the mirror universe with the cloaking device. Martok happens upon them, of course, but they beam out before he can stop them.
Right.
They're now in the mirror universe where they are confronted by Vic, of all people.
Yes.
Um, Vic
Vic Fontaine.
Vic Fontaine is not a hologram in this universe, and he ends up ultimately getting shot by Mirror Bashir, who captures them and Esri and the cloaking device because they, of course, beamed onto Terok Nor, which is now, if you can remember, the in the Mirror universe, there's a war going on. There is the Alliance powers, which is made up of the various alien species: Klingon, Cardassian, Bajoran, so forth. And then you have the Rebel Resistance, which is humans, Vulcans, Trill, and maybe an amalgam of a couple other races that we don't really get names for at the time.
Right.
So at first, they're kind of confused as to why Esri is working with the Alliance, which he should be on the side of the Rebels. Again, there's the shootout, which leads to Vic being dead and them all being captured by the Rebels. The Rebels find out that what they're trying to give the Regent is a cloaking device, so they intend to lock them up. And Smiley, played by our Chief O'Brien, wants to send Nog and Quark home. He's like, you should just forget about the Nagus, but we'll send you back and let your Cisco deal with you. And I'm pretty sure once he finds out what you're over here doing, he's not going to be too thrilled with you. And they're right. He wouldn't be. But they say they can't go home because they need Zek. They've got to have Zek back. So now he's like, okay, I'll give you some time to think about it. But while they're in the cell, lo and behold, Brunt comes to their aid. Brunt, who is Ezri's best friend, apparently,
Yep.
and has sabotaged the station long enough for him to have stolen the cloaking device and put it on their ship. And now he's there to rescue Ezri and Nog and uh, Ezri, Rom, and Quark.
Wow,
They Rom. I keep saying Nog. I like
he's really
I
efficient.
like him more. That's why. Um, They make it to Ezri's ship, which is a Ferengi ship. They leave the station with the cloaking device. Ezri retires for the evening, to which leaves Quark and Brunt to kind of talk a little bit. And we see a very different type of Brunt. The ruthless, calculating, manipulative Brunt is gone. The friendly, helpful, subservient Brunt is here. And we find out that despite how close he is with Ezri, he's not as close as he would like to be, basically intimating that he's got some sort of romantic feeling for her. It's also intimated that she's not into either of them, that she's very particular about her type. They rendezvous with the Regent ship. We see that the Regent is Worf, of course, a not too bright Worf, if I can make any kind of estimation about him. He seems just kind of very whomever is talking to him in the moment is what brain pattern he's on, what brainwave he's on.
Interesting
He doesn't
point.
really
Yeah.
seem to have he doesn't really seem to have a direction of his own. When he's talking with Garrick, he's very ruthless. He's very bloodthirsty and wants to, you know, blow up stuff. When he's talking with the Regent, again, that's Major Kira, of course, he's way more seemingly calculating and sadistic and so forth. When he's left to his own devices, he just kind of seems dumb and violent. Like at one point, he puts on some new gloves and punches a guy in the face just because he can. He demands that the cloaking device be installed on his ship. He releases the regent releases the intendant because that was the deal that the intendant and Esri had with the regent. There was no real deal for the Ferengi. So now that they've got the cloaking device, the regent
Mm,
is ready to kill all of the Ferengi. We're done with them. We don't need them. Um, Brunt asks for Esri to plead with the intendant to save Rom and Quark. The intendant overhears this conversation and decides to kill Brunt, which upsets Esri. Now it's got her thinking more and more about like what kind of person I guess she really wants to be. Um, they have difficulties installing the cloaking device, so that's where Rom comes in, and he ends up getting it to work, which allows them to sneak up on the Mirror Defiant. Um, they decide to attack the Mirror Defiant. As soon as they decloak and attempt to fire, the system's all shut down, which allows the Defiant which was now caught in the ambush, to mount an attack because they can't do anything. Their shields are down, can't fire weapons, can't do anything. Um, Ezri slips away. She frees Nog. Dang. She frees Rom and Quark and the Nagus, and they are now going to try and escape on her ship. They run into the regent. Not sorry. They run into the intendant, who's like, "Oh, I was looking for you," to Ezri, and we clearly see that her and Ezri have a thing for each other. Whatever.
right.
Um, Esri decides not to help the regent, or dang it, decides not to help the intendant. And she tells her the reason she's not going to help her is because she killed Brunt, who was her friend.
Right.
She defects basically to the rebels. She goes with them back to Terok Nur, where now, since the Defiant has won against the Regent and his ship, they've now taken the Regent's unconditional surrender, and they're kind of in this kind of celebratory phase. And it's now time to send our Ferengi back to their universe. And we see that Esri, now happy and content and kind of a free woman to do with as she pleases, is already moving on and seemingly set her sights on Lita, who is there doing whatever, debriefing, as she puts it, at the end.
Yeah.
That's
Very
it.
well.
That's essentially the episode. Um, We're going to talk about the other points and everything else, but that's it. So, as always, I'd like to start with you, Mr. First Time Viewer. What did you think of this Mirror episode? We've seen a lot of Mirror episodes, but what did you think of this one?
I think like a lot of them, it's just so convoluted, but they don't give it enough space to breathe. I mean, it's interesting to see our actors playing very different versions of their characters. As Rom says throughout the whole thing, he keeps thinking that because people are different in the mirror universe, they have to be like literally the mirror version of themselves.
Right.
Even though he notices that O'Brien and Smiley are pretty much the same kind of dude, like they're not really that different. Just because he's not that different, there are other people who are very different from their counterparts, and so he like has to take a minute to wrap his head around that concept. Um, it's convoluted because like the Grand Nagus explains that the reason he got here to the mirror universe is that he saw, Moogie, their mother, Rom and Quark's mother is his lover. They're not married or anything. They're still
No.
just, yeah.
Right.
And so when Rom was last home, he was foolish enough to leave some sort of schematics around that talked about getting to the mirror universe. And of course, they always love those Ferengi to expand their business opportunities. So he decided to go to the mirror universe to explore business opportunities, and somehow got captured and somehow insinuated something about cloaking devices, and that he would get Quark and Rom to bring a cloaking device to set him free. Yeah, it's just one of those plots where it's like we really have to work to get this plot going. Um,
Mhm.
but the best part is stuff like, I mean, the Worf and it's not Garrick as we know him. It's the mirror universe. Garrick is the best character. He's the one who is kind of like free to be evil, as opposed to the spy type we know him as. He's ruthless. He's kind of incompetent as well.
I was gonna say he's also a bit of an idiot.
He's also, yeah, a bit of an idiot. I mean, the best scene with him in this one is when he's got Rom and Cork and the Grand Nagus all in the prison
in the brig.
cell, and he
Yeah.
has this gun looking syringe that he threatens to shoot them all up with, which is gonna give them a terrible death. It's gonna cause their bodies to warm up so much that their organs will literally start to boil. And as soon as I heard that, I was like, I don't know if you know how physics work, bro.
Well,
like, I'm not a physicist, so maybe I'm wrong. I'll admit, but I don't think you can make the body's organs boil by just straight up
mm,
raising the temperature. Like if you sent them into like zero gravity, like into space where like you can cause things to boil at low temperature. Anyway, I'm getting
well,
off track.
yeah, yeah. It's yeah. Don't think too much into the
Well,
explanation of
what I
what
was
the
getting at
disease
is that
is.
they start like telling him that like you're not as good as our Garrick, and he like gets offended and like starts arguing with them as in this in. I mean, it's practically slapstick comedy at that point. It's
Yeah,
practically Three
he
Stooges.
becomes almost instantly obsessed with his Garrick counterpart in what we would consider the Prime Universe,
Right,
and just how good or not good he is at torture and interrogation and whatever. Something that he apparently has never had to think about ever, and suddenly it's all consuming that he knows what
right.
this Garrick does that's so different from him. It's the showrunner describes this episode as extremely wacky, which, not a word I would ever use, but it definitely fits.
Yeah.
There's just so many, like, I wouldn't even call them convoluted because they're all one dimensional,
Mhm.
the different plot lines, but
Mhm.
it's because there's so many of them, I guess it gives you this feeling of everything is all, tangled up and mixed around and whatever else. But it's really not. It's a series of one notes. They just all are being struck around the same time.
Uh
Um,
huh.
but yeah, did you like this episode?
I mean, I I guess I'll put it this way: because we've watched enough Mirror episodes, and I know you don't like them, and we haven't had any great time with them. I went into this one apathetic and didn't expect a whole lot, and didn't get a whole lot.
Yeah.
So I,
Okay.
I just kind of meh. I mean, I guess why I'm talking about Garrick. Like Garrick's animated.
He is.
He's
He's very bright in this one, and I'll give you that. He's as we typically see with Garrick, he's a standout in the
yeah,
scenes that he's in.
right, yeah,
Um,
yeah. His actor is
yeah,
in who
Andrew Robinson. He does a
yeah,
great job. He does a great job.
right. Yeah, he's great in the role, and he does it certainly with passion. And this is this character, this alternate version of Garrick, has been fun every time.
Yeah.
He was originally the subordinate to the intendant, Kira, but hated her. And then
He was
when
always trying to figure out a way to get over on her. He was
right,
her subordinate, but it was like, I'm only your subordinate until I can figure out a way to bring you down.
right, and then in the last time we were in the mirror universe, was that when we met the Worf version
Yes,
of,
the Regent Worf.
and
Yes.
somehow Kira had betrayed him, or he thought he betrayed him. So Garrick felt he finally had a reason to go kill her. Hey, again, it's so convoluted, and the plot line is only we only get one episode in the Mirror Universe per season, so you have to really remember like what the
Yeah.
heck is going on with these episodes. Um, I mean, Kira as this, the tight leather bound seductress is fun. She's fun to watch, fun to look at, but at this point, she's also been the same character the whole time. Every time
Yeah.
she's come on screen, um, I'll just put it the way these episodes just require a lot of the audience to like get on board with what's going on, and
That's kind of my main gripe against all things Mirror Universe. It requires so many fantastical leaps that it really begins to just not make sense. And then that's why you end up with stories like this. Like this episode is probably the only, like, well, one of the few that's set so far and so deep into the Mirror Universe, and Rom is kind of serving. He's kind of our window here into this universe because, as always, when watching these, we try to make the episodes make sense, right? We're trying to find the similarities, the differences, highlight the differences in particular to know mirror universe characters from their counterparts. That had already been established all the way back when, the original series guys did the very first mirror universe episode, and they were very, very stark in their portrayals,
uh-huh,
for as charming and charismatic and wonderful as James T. Kirk was in Prime Universe. In the Mirror Universe, he was ruthless and he was bloodthirsty and he was a tyrant. Um, there were characters like Smiley, like Vulcans seem to be very consistent. Like they could be ruthless and cunning and so forth, but they were also overall very neutral. And that's kind of the turning point in that TOS episode, is that Prime Universe Kirk is able to persuade Mirror Universe Spock to lead the revolution that would bring about a version of the Federation in the Mirror Universe. And
right,
that is what we're seeing in these later episodes in Deep Space Nine and so forth when they cross over. The long war they're fighting, the rebels and the alliance, so forth, it all stems from Kirk messing around over in the mirror universe.
right,
Um, but when you get to stuff like this where you see these characters who kind of blur the lines a bit and have different roles, and we're really not sure who's doing what, like we've got Vic Fontaine, who in our universe is a hologram. He's a made up character, but over here he appears to be a flesh and blood person
yeah,
running around, shooting people and stuff like that. It brings to mind a series of Trek novels that were written years ago. I'm not sure where this falls in the is it or isn't it canon, but they were called, instead of the Mirror Universe, they were the Myriad Universe. And so the explanation behind these were that, there it was a offshoot of a TNG episode where Worf, I'm trying to think of what it was called. I think it's called Fracture, is the name of the episode. But basically, Worf is off of the Enterprise. He went to a fighting competition, and on his way back, he
Right.
ran into an anomaly which caused splintering of the universe,
Right.
right? And so
Yes.
we
For
ended
that.
up seeing, yeah, we ended up seeing he was like shifting between universes, and then they fractured it even more to where all of a sudden multiple enterprises were appearing in a given area.
Right.
And so this book series was kind of like an offshoot of that, which is saying, again, myriad universe. There are multiples. These are stories of characters that we feel like we know because they have the name, Picard, Janeway, Sulu, so forth. But we're seeing them in vastly different ways. And so you
Right.
could read a book and it could have four stories about Cisco in it, but each one is a different Cisco.
Right.
So it was stuff like that, and I mean, some of them were interesting, some of them were confusing, and I think it's one of those situations where, like, for our brains and the way that we look at storytelling, the non-linear aspect of trying to reconcile that we're seeing the exact same character's name, but they're doing vastly different things from one page to the next, can't keep up with it. And so I think it was a very short-lived series. And I think that's why I also have such a problem with the mirror universe stuff because it dives so hard into that. And I
Right.
just don't like it. I don't see the point. Like, what does it do? What do our characters gain by going into the mirror universe? Like,
Right.
are these by running into these terrible counterparts of themselves? Do they learn something about themselves that makes them better when they come home or
Right.
worse when they come home? Like,
Right.
what is it? Like there's none of that in all, and that's in all of them except for really the first one, where Kirk challenges Spock to be better. Every other mirror universe story done, it was just for the sake of, well, we get to see our actors in different roles, and we get to see people with cool new haircuts, and
Right.
it means nothing to the overall plot of the show that we've been telling for the past 4, 5, 6 years, whenever the
Yeah.
episode popped up, and that's why I don't like them.
Yeah. Yeah. You're totally right. And there was stuff we could have explored, like are Esri and Bashir actually a couple? Because Odo was teasing Quark. Quark was like, she doesn't know she loves me yet. And Odo was like, yeah, I don't know what he says, but like when he turns around and looks, Odo and they're gone. Odo's like, yeah, I saw them walking away hand in hand. Um, and like we didn't see that, so we don't know if Odo was just teasing Quark, but they were certainly sitting at the table laughing and talking. But were they just laughing and talking as friends or something more?
Mhm.
Um, Part of the reason that's also interesting is because when we go to the mirror universe, Smiley, O'Brien, says that this Bashir is upset because their version of John Zia is dead. Oh, she's gone. She's not here. That's why she's not here in the mirror universe. Um, that could have been an opportunity for them to bring Terry Farrell back for a quick scene. Be like, hey,
See,
you guys missed her. Here she is briefly. I mean, that would have underdone the whole
yeah,
firing bit, but I
yeah,
can
looking
see why they
looking
didn't
back
do that. But
looking back on it, some 20, 30 years later, it's like, yeah, obviously they could have done this, but at the same time, her firing was still very fresh,
oh
and
yeah, I
and
see why they didn't do it.
I don't think that anybody even bothered to reach out to her, but I could just
Yeah,
imagine someone attempting to and just basically getting the door slammed in their face. You want me to come back for a one-off cameo where I say two lines and then I'm out the door? Like,
the
sit
very
through the
thing I
makeup.
asked you to let me do.
Right,
Yeah,
right. You're gonna bring me, yeah. Like, I could just absolutely see her being, furious if they even
yeah,
approached her with it, which I'm sure they didn't do.
yeah,
Um,
yeah, yeah.
but it also, you bringing that up, it also reminds me, in Star Trek Discovery, there was a whole thing about a Trill and a symbiont, and this basically the person who was the host had forgotten who they were. And so there was this whole thing about trying to figure out who the symbiont was. And it was this just long kind of round robin. The only way we're going to be able to figure it out is they have to go back to the Trill homeworld and go down into the pools and, reunite with themselves, basically. And I mean, everywhere, every message board across the thing, everybody was, it's Dax, it's Dax, it's got to be Dax. Let it be Dax. Please let it be Dax. Dax, 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 Dax. It wasn't Dax. And it was just like, what an incredibly stupid move that, I mean, you could have very easily have done, fixed a wrong basically, and made this Dax and given credence to a longevity, to a legendary
Right.
character. And they missed the mark. And I was like, Discovery has been criticized for a lot of different things, and I've defended Discovery on a lot of different things, but that's one that I'm just like,
You guys
once
did
again,
not
you
pull off.
guys, right, you legitimately, that was a terrible mistake to make. And considering the number of times that stuff has come up that they've had an opportunity to inject something of Deep Space Nine into other shows, and they just don't. It's very obvious that somewhere somebody has a problem with Deep Space Nine and refuses to give it its due, and it just blows my mind when it happens.
Right. Yeah.
Um, so again, not the greatest of episodes, but as we've already said, Garrick was a highlight. I think we can both agree the intendant is also a highlight. Was there anything else about the episode that really kind of stood out to you as, I'm enjoying this bit, I'm enjoying this part?
Um. Well, I'll start with Esri for a quick moment because this is the first time we've seen the actress playing Esri, who I'm sure you can come up with a name faster than I can look it up.
Nicole DeBoer.
There you go, Nicole DeBoer. This is the first time we've seen her do anything beyond her normal Esri self. This is a mirror episode. That's the point. When she first shows up, um, she's got the knife, she's got the black leather, she's got the kind of rock style hairdo,
Hmm.
and Quark can't tell a difference. He didn't immediately catch on. He thinks that she's just
He's in it.
role
She's,
playing for
yeah,
him.
role play. She's come through to role play for
Yeah,
him in the
she,
middle of the night.
she has realized her love for him and what he wants in terms of his little cakes.
You know, I'm glad you bring this up. I'm gonna stop you right here because in thinking about it, how desperate do you have to be for someone that has otherwise clearly made it obvious that they don't have any interest in you? That if they were to come knocking on your door in the middle of the night, you're not inherently suspicious.
Right,
Like you would
especially in
just
a sci-fi film or
right
genre
in
like
in a
this.
yeah, and in a world where literally anything can happen. You've dealt with wormhole aliens that can manipulate time and space like it's nothing. Heck, Quark, your friends were trapped in a game in one of your best episodes ever. And you still seem to I had to, David. You still seem to want to believe that, you know, this is a thing. This is legitimate. She comes to you. She's dressed differently. Her hair is different. Her makeup is different. Her attitude and demeanor towards you are different. And even when she pulls the knife on you, you're still trying to reconcile that this is your person. This is the one that you know.
Right.
She's playing a game of some kind. Like I I just I don't buy it. Like there's so much about this, and then this is kind of my argument with a lot of Trek sometimes. When things come up like this and stuff starts happening, I'm just like, there's no way I could get caught in that situation because I'd be like, I'd already be calling for security. I'd already be like trying to, why isn't my door locked better? You're gonna fix this, like all these things, and he just
Yeah.
no, no question.
Yeah. Yeah. No, you're totally right. Which is why, like, I bring it up in the sense of like it's interesting to see the actress play a different version of the character. Um, the Worf version, the alternate version, is also kind of interesting. You are right when you point out that his demeanor and character seems to be affected by who he's talking with. Like he's like I don't know if you ever played Pokemon, but he's like a Ditto to whatever he's looking at is what he turns into in terms of personality. I still liked the idea that he was kind of this rougher character, Like, there's this interesting little scene where he puts on these gloves, and they've
What
got
I'm
like
talking
little.
about. Yeah.
He's
He's
got
got these
little.
two guys that, put the gloves on him and they've got like metal studs
Right.
all along the knuckles and back of the hand and everything. And then he's like, "You come here. Your regent needs you." And then the guy steps forward and he's just bam, right in the face. Just I'm like,
He's done.
violent.
That guy
Right.
just falls over. Like, I thought these Klingons were supposed to be pretty resilient. Like, the guy might put up with being hit, but like straight up fall over dead. Okay.
And then we see, Worf when he does finally make decisions on his own, it leads to him having to surrender. And then in his
Oh, he surrenders
frustration
so
and anger,
fast, and he's
yeah,
so. He's not a freaking emperor king. He's
he's a
not like.
baby.
Yeah, the worst thing he does is he throws his chair around.
Yeah, he breaks it out of the ground, out of the floorboard or
Right.
whatever, and
Where's that energy
hurls
when
it.
he's walking down the plank at the end of the episode and he's got his little handcuffs on? He's so meek and mild. I'm like, no, this is where he would break out and like
Right, you're
ruin
surrounded by a
everyone.
bunch of puny humans and trills and whatever else.
Yeah,
Go in there and curb stomp some heads.
right. When he surrenders too earlier on, you've had your success, or victory is yours. I mean, think about the way this plot had to work to make this happen. Rom had to go work on the cloaking device. It had to work properly, and yet somehow, when it's uncloaked, cause the entire ship to lose power in such a way that they can't reboot the power in time to like keep the Defiant off of him. Like, I could see them needing to reboot the power and it take time and they can't do it in time, and that would be fun. But like, how did Rom know that the timing was going to work out with the Defiant? Like, the Defiant would figure it out and come and shoot, and it just happened so neatly. There was no stakes, is what I'm getting
No,
at. There
yeah.
was no
Like I
driving
said,
tension.
like everything here, every thread in this storyline was very neat. There were
Yes.
just a lot of them, you
Right.
know. There was nothing here that was overly complicated that you needed to really think your way through.
Right.
None of that. I don't know if that was intentional because they knew this is kind of like a turning point in the season. Everything that comes after this really is about, the end of the show. The end. We have a lot of other storylines we need to tie up, and so they wanted to give these characters something to do because we may not be seeing them very much over
Hmm.
the next few bits. I know that, I guess spoilers, foreshadowing, whatever. Um, maybe that's it. I also, this is one of those things that kind of sticks out in my head. It's Esri. Um, she she's in it again. You know, she's she's been in every episode of season 7 so far. She's been in every episode, and she hasn't had just like a small part. She's had a pretty substantial bit to do, and I intellectually I get it. She's a new character. She was introduced in the 7th season. They want us to know and understand and identify with this character and kind of embrace her into the family. But at the same time, it's just like knowing what I know about why Terry Farrell left and Jadzia and everything else. It's just very hard.
Right.
And even before knowing all that, it was still very hard because Jadzia was still a character that I had come to really, enjoy, and I'm not the only one. And so her death, her departure was incredibly abrupt. And then every opportunity they've had since then to pay her any kind of deference, show her any kind of respect, has been batted away left, right, and center. And it's
Yeah.
just like it sucks. It
Yeah.
sucks on that point. Like, you can lose characters and transition into new characters, but you should respect what came before, not try to act like whatever it was terrible or that was the mistake and this is the correct thing that they were going for. Um, so once again, to see Esri flirting with Bashir, and then we get to see Esri with the crooked dagger and kissing on the intendant and chasing after Lita and all that. It's just it's too much.
Hmm.
After we just saw her with the siege and Nog and his leg and dealing with coming back to the station and Worf and all of this stuff over and over again. It's like, okay, well, I'm ready for her to kind of go away now.
Yeah,
Like,
last episode
sit
was
down.
Prodigal Daughter. Yeah, it was
Yeah,
perfect.
yeah. We had a whole, yeah, we got a deep dive on her at that point. Her whole family
Right.
dynamics. The extended, like all of it. Just enough,
Right.
enough. All right.
Yeah.
She's done more work in these past 5 episodes than it feels like Jadzia got over the past 6 seasons, and that's ridiculous.
Certainly, if you compare her first season to Jadzia's first season, I mean, my complaint for however long was Jadzia got a one-liner and got star billing. Like
Hmm.
Terry Farrell was totally right to be like, guys, you're only treating me as like a secondary character anyway. Let's just make it official. And I say that in part because I'm just looking at the cast list. The reason this episode is also kind of funky is because we have so many secondary characters in this episode. We
Hmm.
have the Grand Nagus, we have
Rom,
Garrick, we have
Garrick,
Rom. I mean, Rom is even more than Garrick. We see him more often, but we have Brunt. Like Brunt, we
Brunt.
have
We have
we have
Vic. We've got Lita. We've
Vic,
got, yeah,
Lita, and they are literally only in the scenes for a moment. General Martok has two very minor scenes. I mean,
Cisco
Cisco had
walks
less.
through. Yeah,
There's less of Cisco than all these other characters. So it's like they went to the drawing board. They said, let's do a mirror episode. And not only is it a mirror episode where we're gonna like have Esri be like the star, we're gonna like bring in all of our secondary characters, all of our characters who show up every now and have them have their little bit in the mirror universe. And so it's just this episode just it requires a lot. The episode is clunky in its setup and clunky in its payoff.
yeah, yeah.
Yeah.
It's just, it's I really do feel like this was their attempt at kind of giving us, like, trying to, two birds, one stone. They want to wrap up some things with characters like Quark and Rom and just that little bit there, but and the Nagus and so forth. But it's also kind of we're giving you a little bit of levity before we jump into the meat and potatoes of our season, you know.
Right.
And like I said, Rom is supposed to be us, I feel. He's always trying to figure out a way to explain the universe, to make it make sense, and he's asking the things, he's saying the things that a lot of people at the time were saying when, again, trying to make this universe make sense. And I think that's something that still kind of gets debated when we deal with mirror universe stuff, even to the point where, like I said, Discovery did some mirror universe episodes as well. Heck, they did like half a season that was mirror universe, as a matter of fact. And even then, some of the stuff that they deal with in their mirror universe episodes doesn't totally track with what we'd already knew about the mirror universe up to a point. So it's just like, why do y'all keep doing it? Like, that's what I want to ask. Like,
Right.
it seems like every one of these has lost the plot, lost the point of the mirror universe. And instead of going back and looking at the original episode and seeing what it was about and what was going on there, it's more like, we want to go to this one because it's a quick grab gimmick. We get to change your uniforms, change your hairstyle. We get to make you guys act oafish and evil, you know, and ultimately, we get what we really want, which is we get to sell more ads and more merchandise because we've slightly modified your uniforms look a certain way, and now we can start milking that cash cow too. And
Right.
totally forgetting that they're supposed to be telling a particular kind of story, you know.
Right.
And they've made the mirror universe way too accessible. Now just a quick punching of buttons on the transporter. Heck, they don't even do that anymore. They got a device that you just wave the device over the transporter and it magically reconfigures it
Yeah.
to beam you over to do, and anybody can do it. The super old Ferengi with some passing glances at a Starfleet technical manual can figure out how to hot rig himself away into the mirror universe. Whereas before it was an exceedingly complicated accident that had to be precisely duplicated, and even then you weren't guaranteed that it was going to succeed. So
Right.
yeah, there's just so much to it that just kind of trivializes everything that came before. And again, the episodes serve no point. Our characters learn nothing. Are they It does nothing to further them along. The only one that I would ever say really kind of challenges that notion is the one where the mirror universe Jennifer came to the Prime Universe station,
Right.
and we saw her kind of getting close with Ben and Jake, and then ultimately she dies. And in a way, it's kind of the catharsis that Cisco needed to close the book on his lingering issues with his dead wife Jennifer and
Right.
move on into new potential relationships, which ultimately led to Cassidy Yates. But that's like
Uh-huh.
the only time. No other time have any of these episodes meant really anything. So I'm really over it, and I hope that, like, I know there's others, Strange New Worlds is running, the Starfleet Academy show is in production, and who knows what else they're gonna do. I just hope that, like, they just don't do it anymore. It's played out. I'm ready
Right.
for new stuff. I feel like everybody's ready for new stuff. Stop reaching into that gimmick bag and do something else. Or if you want to do mirror universe, do a different mirror. Go to a different universe, not the one where
Yeah.
everybody's evil. Maybe
Yeah.
go to another one where the Federation just never existed and people just,
Yeah. You're
didn't
very
make
right.
contact.
As you were talking about earlier with the whole Warp episode and all those enterprises showing up in the what did you call them universes? The
Myriad
myriad.
universe.
Like in this episode, they call it the alternate universe. It's like there's only the one, and it. I mean, the fact that in TNG they have the idea of the multiverse, and Star Trek in general has the idea of the multiverse. You figure at this time they would have moved beyond the idea of this one alternate universe being the one that we interact with. Maybe the idea is that we just happen to interact with the most simply because, like, we know what the resonant frequency of the
Yeah, they've
portals speed.
they've never really given, at least in an episode anyway, they've never really given a reason for why we seem to have ease of access of that particular universe.
Right,
I know that they did try to explain something about convergent and divergent timelines, and as long as things follow along on a certain track, then it makes it accessible. But that was in Discovery, and even though they didn't explain that all the way, but there are several books that, again, you want to debate canon or not, that's on you. But there are several books that have talked about it, and in particular there was a series of books. I loved these series of books, and they were written by um, William Shatner and I think their names were Reeve Stevens, Judith and Garfield Reeve Stevens, and there was 3 books, and, a trilogy there, and, it talks about the fact that everything in any one universe resonates with a certain, um, quantum signature, quantum frequency,
right.
and if you can figure out how to differentiate those signatures, you can move between the universes and interact in those universes, but your quantum signature will always be off, and that was a key point in the books because that was
Oh,
ultimately how they were able to tell who was who and who was where they were supposed to be, and so forth, because initially no one was scanning for it, and there was a whole group of them that came over and tried to pretend to be people in the Prime universe, but they were really just looking for technology to scavenge and steal and so forth.
right.
So, but yeah, that became like the quantum signature. I'll never forget that. And the quantum resonance signature. And once you figured it out, you could again differentiate your people, and even like everything had it. The clothes, the ships, the whatever that came from that universe had that frequency, and they were able to track and move and do stuff. And it's a great series of books. If I ever find it again, I'll let you know. I enjoyed it a lot, and you got to see some team ups, like Picard and Kirk team up at one point. Mirror Universe Janeway shows up and does some stuff with Kirk for a bit. There's like a smattering of other characters that are involved in doing stuff, and it's yeah, great little series.
Gotcha. Huh. Well, Big and Thick is fun.
Well, and I would have loved more of the ending to be where they got back to our universe and Martok was waiting on them and being like, "You will put my cloaking device back."
Yeah.
We don't really see a resolution on that storyline.
I was gonna say the only detail that would affect our universe moving forward is that, which actually could have some fun implications, like Martok. How do you operate your ship if your cloaking device is not working? How do you get a new one? Do you get reprimanded for losing the one you had? Do you there are some ways we could make some interesting stories out of that plot line,
Yeah.
but it's the only plot line that would move forward, other than Quark realizing that his pining interest in Esri is still unrequited, and
I mean, and
maybe
that
he
would have
learns
that would
that
have
that's
and that would have made this episode a little bit better if at the end of it he's realizing that not only is she unattainable in one universe, she's also unattainable in this one, and he
right,
really needs to stop focusing on the unattainable woman and move towards someone a bit more within his grasp.
right.
But we don't even get that kind of growth and resolution from him. He's still kind of after her and upset that she went off with Lita at the end. So yeah, there's no sense of growth here at all. There's nothing about this episode that really matters.
Hmm.
And I don't like stuff like that. Like, give me something that's going to have implications in the future for whatever characters it is that we're watching in the episode. We get none of that,
Hmm.
you know. So, like, heck, maybe even the Grand Nagus getting reprimanded by Cisco for stealing Starfleet knowledge, and getting into the mirror universe in the first place, or Rom getting reprimanded for leaving confidential Starfleet technical information around where anybody could access it and utilize it. Like something that shows. I don't know, just a basic acknowledgement here of consequences to these people's actions, which we never see. We never see.
Right.
So overall, how would you rate this one? Fun, easy watch, one to skip. What would
You
you
can
say?
definitely skip it unless you're doing a binge run, the 5 episode binge run of Deep Space Nine's mirror episodes, mirror universe episodes. Um, yeah, you can skip it. Yeah. Oh, I don't know. I hate hating on episodes if I don't like, other than moving along home, or move along home, I guess is what it's properly called. Like this episode, it's one of those things where like it is what it is on some level. So like, okay, just accept it for what it is. You can skip it if you want. Like I don't hate it like I do Move Along Home. It's just
No,
not good. It's not a good episode.
yeah,
Excuse
that's
me.
just it. Like I said, I mean, I don't like it because it's yet another mirror universe episode. But also, even if we remove that aspect of it, it's still just not a good episode to me. I'm not
Right.
going to say that it's as bad as, well, yeah, Move Along Home was, but it's not a good episode, and it leaves too many things to question. Like, there's definitely, if they're going to explain anything in the mirror universe in this episode, definitely should have gone to explaining Vic Fontaine and what that's all about. Like, because it just comes out of nowhere. The only time at least with characters like Jadzia and Smiley and Bashir being different. He's not a doctor, he's not whatever. It still made sense because they were legitimate people. You know,
Right. Yeah.
Vic was a fictitious hologram that someone created. He was
Right.
based off of real people. He was supposed to be, the equivalent of, the Dean Martin, Frank Sinatra, Sammy Davis Jr. types. But the character, the name Vic Fontaine did not exist anywhere outside of the holodeck program. So what gives? And they even called him Vic when he shot him. Bashir calls him Vic when he shot him.
Yeah.
So there's got to be some kind of correlation there. And the fact that we don't get any kind of explanation, and he dies. That's one of those moments again that clearly stinks of we just want to see our actors do different things. And Vic was on set, and someone was like, "Hey, you want to run around with the phaser in the corridor for a little bit?"
Yeah,
Sure.
yeah.
There you go.
You're literally not going to be on screen longer than a millisecond. Okay, yeah.
You know,
I mean, it's funny we talking about Vic here because
we need somebody to get shot. You down?
yeah,
Sign me
on
up.
on Wikipedia, not only does the plot synopsis not mention Vic, the guest appearance list doesn't mention Vic. Like that bit is so short and just bizarre. Like even the Wikipedia people forgot about it. Maybe Memory Alpha. I'm sure they've remembered it because that's the
No, because I'm looking at it right now, and it lists the guest stars, and he's not in it. It doesn't
man.
list him as all. He's not even included in the special guest star section. Only one name, and that's Wallace Shawn as Zek.
Right.
Let's see if you scroll all the way down. There he is. He appears in the section uncredited co-stars, and he's third. He's not even first, third.
Who's first and who's second?
Someone named Ivy Borg as Rita Tannenbaum. I don't even remember that character being mentioned. And then someone Uriah Carr as Civilian, and then James Darren as Vic Fontaine. Like it makes no sense.
I can't believe it. You're a part of one of the best episodes we've seen this season so far. It's only a paper moon. Only 2 episodes later, we're like, who is that
No,
guy?
just terrible. Just done so wrong.
PTSD as a plot line with a character who's actually had physical injury on a show, and 2 episodes later, Homeboy gets shot dead.
In 10 seconds.
Not even.
If that. I was gonna say
Not
if that.
even. Five
Dead in
seconds
10.
is
Yeah.
generous. He was. I tell you this, Perry. He was dead longer on the ground when the camera was on Esri and Quark and Rom than he was when he
You
was
are
alive.
absolutely right.
Yeah,
You're absolutely right. He was on screen dead longer than he was on screen alive.
I have to say the wound
Man.
they gave him was so bizarre. Like it didn't look like a normal wound that I thought maybe the idea was he was some sort of hologramic. Like the technology in the mirror universe allows holograms to somehow be more. Like we know the holograms in the holodeck can be
Yeah.
deadly, so
Yeah.
maybe he's somehow the technology is working here. Like the
They could have borrowed a
station,
page. They could have borrowed a page out of Voyager's book and given him an autonomous mobile emitter, which would have allowed him to move
or
around
make
free of the
Terok
holodeck.
Nor in the mirror universe. They've recently
Has hollow
upgraded.
emitters all over the
Yeah,
place. He can transition and move around
he was
through.
their security guard. Like that's
Yeah,
how he got there.
something. But
Yeah,
there again, there needed to be something, and because we know that based upon Vic's origin in the Prime universe, there has to be a connection. He can't just be a person. He can't. He can't just be a person.
no, what's the plot for the Doctor on Voyager? Like he is actual like a scan of the guy who actually invented the
So
technology.
yeah, so the emergency medical holographic program was based off of the form anyway. The physical form was based off of the scientist that created the program, Dr. Lewis Zimmerman. He used his basic form, but then he created an all new, so-called he created a new personality and said, because we see Dr. Zimmerman come to Deep
Deep
Space
Space
Nine when he's
Nine, that
gonna,
one episode. Yeah,
use they're gonna use
Bashir.
Bashir as the next version of the EMH program.
Right.
Um,
Is
but
that the
yeah, but
one we finally learn that he's the super
genetically engineered,
genius? That's the
yes,
one episode we
that's
learned
the
it.
one.
Okay, got it,
Yeah.
got it, got it.
And so, but then on Voyager, that program had already been installed on the ship. Voyager gets flung all the way into the Delta Quadrant, so the program is never removed. They use the Doctor. So even in the Alpha Quadrant, when it was deemed defective and they removed that program and everything else, Voyager still had theirs, and Voyager allows the program to grow and expand, and eventually it becomes a sentient hologram.
Right,
So full-fledged member of the crew, even though he doesn't have a name, they just call him the Doctor all the time.
right.
But yeah, that was that. So, oh, now we done talked about the Doctor, and I feel like watching Voyager, which is rare for me.
Yeah,
Not that I don't like Voyager, it's just that Voyager, it invokes a weird kind of nostalgia for me that I don't always like, So, but anyway, that's a story for another time.
yeah.
Anyway, but I think that is going to do it for us, unless there's anything else you want to say about the Emperor's
Apparently,
new
the
cloak.
director was LeVar Burton of this episode, so
Yes, he did the other Mirror Universe episodes for us too in Deep Space
all
Nine.
five of them. He did all five.
Yeah, I believe so. I believe he's been the director for all of the Mirror
Cheers.
Universe ones. Um, yeah, and he
Nice.
said he's quoted as saying he loves doing the Mirror Universe. So maybe that's another reason why it stays around so long. Because if you can get Levar to come and do it, you
Someone
know,
needs to sit LeVar down and be like, bro.
yeah. Listen, hey, and it's funny because as much as they rely on the Mirror Universe, they never did a Mirror Universe episode in um, Next Generation. Um,
According to, just real quickly, I just went through all of the directors of the 5 episodes on Deep Space Nine. He did the most recent one, Resurrection, but the
okay.
first three he did not direct. I don't know if he might
Uh,
have been involved. I just skipped past it too quick. But anyway, sorry. Just keep
okay.
keep going. Keep going.
Well, I was just saying, like, Next Generation and Voyager are the only two shows that did not do a mirror universe episode. Now, some people like to say that the episode Yesterday's Enterprise and the episode in Voyager Living Witness are should be considered mirror universe episodes, but I completely disagree because they never cross over. It's in Yesterday's Enterprise, it's because the Enterprise C comes back, so we see an alternate history taking place. That's not a mirror universe scenario. And then in the Voyager Living Universe episode, it's people have in the future have found like left behind data and stuff about Voyager and have recreated what they think life on Voyager was like at a particular time a few hundred years ago when the ship was traveling through the space. Not the same thing as a crossover episode, even though they were both darker, more militant versions of our characters. So yeah, those two shows don't do it. All the rest of them have mirror crossovers and so forth.
Right.
And I think that before Discovery, um, Deep Space Nine had the most of them because they only did it once in the original series, and
Yeah.
then Deep Space Nine did five, and then Discovery again. Like I said, I think they did like a season, maybe even a season and a half of Mirror Universe.
According to the list I'm seeing here on Wikipedia, there are 5 episodes from Discovery, 5 episodes from Deep Space Nine, one from the original series, and one from Enterprise.
Yeah, that's correct. Which technically it's two from Enterprise because it was a two-parter episode. Boom.
You don't say.
Well, all right, guys, I think that's going to officially do it for us on this episode of The Fire Caves. Again, bear with us as we get the episodes up to be available on whatever streaming podcasting platform you listen to. Like I happen to do it on Spotify. Hopefully, they'll all be out here within the next week or so. Um, New Trek information. Strange New Worlds, July 17th. The new episode drops. So be ready for that. Maybe we'll do something special here for that to commemorate the new season starting. Who knows? I've got time. So we'll talk about it. Other than that, David, anything else you want to contribute before we're out of here?
I'm good.
All right, guys. Well, that's going to do it for us this week. Until next week, take care of yourselves.